Imagine waking up to the smell of rotting fish and wet wool. You haven't showered in 3 months, your teeth are rotting, and you have a 10-pound iron axe leaning against your bed. Congratulations, you're a Viking. Pop culture says you're a 6'5" bodybuilder with a cool beard. The reality? The average Viking was 5'7", walked with a permanent limp, and had enough intestinal parasites to start a small zoo. We're going to find out why the heroic age was actually a biological nightmare, and why, if you were actually there, you'd probably cry for your mom within the first hour. Scandinavia in the year 793 AD was not a vacation spot. It was a collection of freezing rocks and fjords where nothing grew. Vikings didn't start raiding because they were badass. They started raiding because they were starving. The population grew too fast, and there wasn't enough dirt to grow oats. To solve this, they didn't invent a better plow, they invented the longship. This ship was a biological cheat code. It could carry 60 men, sail in only 20 inches of water, and move at 10 knots. Basically a Ferrari made of oak. It allowed them to appear on a beach, steal everything that wasn't nailed down, and disappear before the local army even put their boots on. But here's the thing. 90% of your life as a Viking wasn't victory in Valhalla. It was manure and misery. The villain of the Viking Age wasn't the English king or the Saxon warriors. The villain was biology. Let's look at the stats. The average life expectancy was roughly 31 years. If you made it to 40, you were basically a wizard. Why? Because your environment was trying to delete you every day. Archaeologists have found calcified parasite eggs in Viking toilets. This means every single Viking was likely suffering from chronic malnutrition and stomach cramps 24/7. And then there's the home gang. In Viking society, if someone insulted you, you couldn't call the police. You had to fight a duel on a small cloak. If you stepped off the cloak, you lost your honor. If you stayed on it, you usually lost your life. The twist? The berserker state everyone talks about? It was likely just a mix of heavy alcohol and poisonous mushrooms that caused permanent brain damage. You weren't a warrior, you were a drugged-up farmer with a sword that cost more than your house. What if a modern human was dropped into a Viking raid today? First, the physical shock would break you. Vikings walked everywhere. They rode for 10 hours straight. A modern gym enthusiast would collapse from exhaustion before the ship even left the fjord. Second, the psychological collapse. Viking culture was based on fatalism. They believed the Norns, 3 goddesses, had already woven your death into a rug. You couldn't change it. This made them incredibly dangerous. If you believe you're going to die today anyway, why not run headfirst into a wall of spears? Modern humans are obsessed with safety. Vikings were obsessed with legacy. But the real legacy isn't the gold they stole, it's the DNA. If you have roots in Northern Europe, there is a statistically high chance you were carrying the Viking gene. Roughly 1% of the world's population are direct descendants of the men who rode those ships. By the end of your day as a Viking, you'd be cold, bleeding, and significantly shorter than you are now. Pop culture loves the Viking aesthetic because it looks cool on a t-shirt, but the reality was a desperate struggle for a species that refused to die in a place where nothing should live. Humans didn't become the dominant species because we lived in easy times. We became the dominant species because we were the only ones dumb enough to look at a frozen rock and say, I can build a home here. Nature doesn't create heroes. It creates survivors. And the Vikings were the most brutal survivors the world has ever seen.